Welcome to the Marcus Freeman Show, presented by TireRack.com. I'm your host, Tony Simeone, joined by the head coach, Marcus Freeman. Coach, I know it was a disappointing loss on Saturday. You didn't get the outcome you were hoping for. Now that you have a chance to kind of look back at it, what was the biggest factor in the outcome on Saturday night?
I think we got to come out of the locker room, we got to start faster. We can't receive the ball and then give Stanford 7 points to start the game. And, we got to try to develop some momentum early offensively. And I thought the defense did a good job of really buckling down and preventing them from scoring much to the very last minute of the second quarter. But we got to offensively capitalize off of the opportunities that we have. And we got to do a better job of executing. And so those are things we'll attack this week in practice.
You guys are facing some adversity now here at the midway point of the season. What's the biggest key for you as the head coach to make sure this team finishes the second half the right way?
Well, it got to start with a belief and understanding that we're a good football team, and our team has showed that in the wins that we had over North Carolina, BYU, and even the win over Cal was a big win for our program. And so what we have to do is go back and really look at why we haven't had some of the success that we want on a consistent basis and really attack it in practice and work on it and find ways to make sure that we perform that way on Saturday.
Coach, appreciate it. We'll step aside and come back. When we do, we'll break down the game against Stanford on the Marcus Freeman Show, presented by TireRack.com. Welcome back to the Marcus Freeman Show, presented by TireRack.com. It's now time for this week's game breakdown. Let's break down the game against Stanford. Coach, you mentioned it in our first segment there. Didn't get off to the hottest start. You go 3 and out, and then they come down and score on the first drive. But your defense after that did play really well. Didn't allow a touchdown. I'm curious from your vantage point on that first series where they scored against you. What did you guys learn about the Stanford offense?
Well, I think that, listen, we knew the quarterback was a talented player. We knew they had a good scheme. I think defensively we're a little bit cautious, trying to figure out exactly what they were going to do. And each offense you face is going to have a different set of opening plays to start a game. And so we were a little bit soft in terms of how we were playing. And then we missed too many tackles on that first drive and tackles that we have to make and, ultimately led to a touchdown. But they did a good job fixing it on the sidelines.
Somebody who had a really good game, I thought, for you was J.D. Bertrand, linebacker, who's been a really consistent force the last couple of years. Just what has he meant to this program, and what did you see from him in this game that allowed him to stand out?
Yeah, it's good to have him back for entirety of a game, and JD is a guy that just the work ethic he puts into his performance is tremendous. He sets the standard for how to prepare for a game, and what you see on Saturdays is a reflection of the way he prepares. And he's a physical, intelligent football player. He's really smart. He's got great talent, great ability, and he's a really good performer for us.
I want to ask you about some of those scoring drives. The first one, it seemed like you went back to that identity and kind of that culture you talked about a week ago in the locker room. The running game was really effective. Logan Diggs jump-started you with the big run out to midfield. Those 3 running backs, Diggs, Tyree, and Estimé, looked sharp at times in the second half, but maybe didn't get the touches we've seen in previous weeks. How do you get them more involved even going forward?
Yeah, I think it starts from the total play count. I think Stanford did a good job of controlling the possession. We didn't have as many plays as we had the week before. And you know what? We weren't, the explosive gains in our run game weren't like they were in the previous weeks. And so we had to do some different things in terms of the pass game. But those are 3 guys that are all still playing at a high level. We have to continue to find ways to get the ball in their hands, be creative in how we do it. And our offense, we're going to be led by what we do with those 3 backs and our offensive line in the run game. And that will open up everything. So we got to do a better job at that.
Your defense, I thought, did a great job keeping you in this game as long as they did in the second half. Those plays, and just in particular their performance in the second half, what did you like from them?
The ability for C-Lou to kind of push that guy jumping for the ball out of bounds on third down to force him to punt. And then the next series when they try to go for it on 4th and 1, those 4th and 1, 4th and 2 situations are so critical. And our defense made a great stand of preventing him from getting the first down.
The go-ahead touchdown, I think a memorable one, Tobias Merriweather, a player that fans are really excited about. He was missed on a play earlier, but gets some redemption on the first play of the 4th quarter. Talk me through the play and what was so successful, but then also what excites you about Tobias in his career here.
Yeah, Tobias is going to be a great player for us. He's continuing to gain the confidence in our coaches that he has to gain for us to play him more and more. And so that play, his touchdown play, we had just missed him earlier on the corner route, and this was the end of the third quarter, and I remember hearing Coach Reese over the headset saying, hey, if they give us a look we're looking for, we're going over top to Tobias, and they gave us exactly what we were looking for. Drew did a great job of putting the ball where it to be, and it was a great route by Tobias and a great finish.
So you had the lead at that point. We could probably do woulda, coulda, shoulda all season long. Every team could, but there was an interesting drive where it looked like Tanner McKee maybe fumbled, ball came out. They ruled that his knee was down, so the fumble comes off the board. Then a little bit later, I thought a big play too was on 3rd and 12. They picked up 11 yards to give themselves a better field goal look. Just on that drive in particular, what stuck out when they ultimately retook the lead?
Yeah, I mean, we were close on a lot of those forced fumbles. The ball was out multiple times. We just weren't able to get the ball back in our possession, and I know they called him down on the one forced fumble by JD, and you know, I think ultimately they had converted a 3rd and long earlier in the game, and you know, it was one of those situations, hey, is he going to try, their offensive coordinator going to try to throw this thing for a first down completion, or they're just going to try to stay in field goal range? They were already in field goal range, and so they ended up just taking, you know, the check down and the check down or run just to get in closer field goal range, and they ended up making the field goal.
Let's just talk about the last drive. You know, no timeouts, tough to go down the length of the field. You needed just a field goal, but still, just from a 2-minute drill perspective, what was the area you guys came up short on that drive, and what have you maybe been coaching, or what do you plan on coaching to make sure that they can execute a little bit better going forward in that situation the rest of the year?
Yeah, we got to protect our quarterback, you know, and we can't take sacks, and we have to make sure our quarterback has time in those 2-minute situations to really, you know, put the ball where it needs to be. And so that's difficult on the O-line when there's no threat of running the ball usually in a 2-minute situation. We did a good job getting the ball to Mayer out of bounds and getting the ball to Diggs. You know, and didn't convert on the 3rd down to Mayer, and the 4th down we weren't able to convert. And so there's a lot of different pieces that it's going to take correcting to make sure we convert in that situation. But, you know, when you play good teams, it's going to come down to a 2-minute situation, and we take pride in feeling like we can execute. We got to do a better job of doing it.
I'm just curious. I imagine it's a tough locker room after a game like that. As the head coach, what was your message, and what's the most important thing for you in the moments immediately following a loss like that?
You know, it's a little bit different than the message after the Marshall game. You know, Marshall was about staying together. Marshall was about this thing will get turned around. You know, Saturday night was a little bit disappointment because I didn't feel like we played the standard of Notre Dame football that should be played. We didn't execute in a way we should have, and I thought we had a good week of practice. And so I was disappointed and challenged them that we have to be better, and we all got to take a deep look at ourselves and figure out how we're going to improve. You know, we have a strong culture in our room. We got a strong group of leaders that are going to continue to keep this team together. And they love each other, support each other, but we have to be better. The expectations are to be better, and the players want to be better, and so we got to find a way to get it fixed.
Coach, appreciate it. We'll step aside and come back with more on this week's edition. It's on the Marcus Freeman Show, presented by TireRack.com. So, Audric, I know you guys didn't get the result you wanted against Stanford, but you now have 6 games left in the season. I'm just curious, from your standpoint, now you guys have had a couple days to process the game. What's the team's mindset going forward to the rest of the season?
Our team's mindset is just kind of, you got to take a week as it is, like go 1 week at a time, 1 day at a time. And that was in the past now, so now it's time to focus on UNLV. And we're just trying to find out the ways to make us better as a team so we can have a good stretch with and finish out these 6 games strong.
What's the biggest key then for you as a running back, a guy that's involved in the offense a lot, to get this team going in the right direction?
I just want to keep on applying energy, keep on applying some type of juice to the teammates so they can keep on going, everyone can keep their head up. And I just want to focus on doing my job because I feel like everyone does their 111, does their job. That'll just make things start to roll.
I got to be honest, I think I'm not alone when I say this, that you're one of my favorite players to watch on the field. Your running style is so unique, so powerful, explosive. Try to explain to me and Notre Dame fans just what's your mindset when you get the ball and you get a chance to run it?
My mindset first is I got to have the correct reads. I got to do my footwork first. I got to be very detailed. And once I do all that, I just got to do me. I got to be a physical back. And when I'm in space one-on-one with a defender, I got to be able to make him miss and just make something happen.
In your short amount of time here at Notre Dame, I feel like you've already developed a lot as a player, but I'm curious, just as you project your career going forward here and maybe at the next level, what are the areas of your game that you're focused on improving and taking up a notch?
Honestly, all areas of my game, honestly, especially if I want to make it to the next level and be a pro, I gotta work on all the areas of my game. But I feel like one thing really I gotten better from last year, this year is pass protection and running routes. So I feel like I want to keep on improving my game so I can have all my game at the highest level.
want to ask you some questions about off the field. Notre Dame, of course, is a university first. When you were making the decision to come to Notre Dame, what went into the decision? What were the factors you were weighing when you decided to come play football here, but also be a student?
Oh yeah, Notre Dame's the put football to the side. Notre Dame is one of the best schools in the country. You have the alumni faculty. That's one of the best in America. You have alumni everywhere. Like, I'm from New York, and you have huge alumni in New York. And also the academic side, you have the best of both worlds. You have Notre Dame football and the Notre Dame academics. And I just feel like Notre Dame is a school that will put me in position to be most successful in life.
In your time on campus, then, when you think about the stuff away from the field, what's something that's had a real impact on you at Notre Dame?
I feel just the people here. The people are just loving people, open-hearted people, and you have all different types of people from everywhere, and they're just open arms to you, loving, and they always just wanna be friends with you, and they wanna give you ways to get better in an academic role and socialize. So I just feel like the people at Notre Dame are just special and like no other.
The last thing I have for you is, of course, we're taking it one game at a time. As you said, you got UNLV coming up. What's the biggest key then for you guys going into this next week?
I feel just be focused, do our details, just don't play down on the other team, just focus on our job and do what we can do, control, and just execute. That's a really key thing what Coach Freeman has been emphasizing is execute, and that's what we just need to do.
Audric, appreciate the time. Thanks so much.
Thank you for having me.
When we come back, we'll go inside the play with Irish Intel on the Marcus Freeman Show, presented by TireRack.com. It's now time for this week's edition of Irish Intel. Coach, I want to talk through this play here. This is, I thought, a really cool play design. Picks up a first down in the first quarter. Lorenzo Styles is going to go in motion and get open. Just talk me through everything that's going on this play.
Yeah, I mean, this was really set up on previous weeks, and what you see is in some short yardage situations, we're able to give Lorenzo Styles that ball on a jet sweep, put him in motion, but we know they're in man coverage here, and it's very similar to the play that BYU ran against us last week, where on the goal line, they did something similar. They saw us run, Tariq Bracy running with them, and threw the ball to him, and they scored a touchdown. So it's anytime you see a team running with you in jet motion, in man coverage, then you can run this play and try to get a free one.
Let me just ask you, when you see him running, that's the indication that they are in man. And do you have an option if he doesn't come with him that they're in zone to check to something else mid-motion, or how does that all work?
Yeah, you'll probably hand the ball off.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's a true RPO here.
Okay.
We're reading it, and if they're in zone coverage, we're probably going to hand the ball.
Okay. So, Coach, this is a play that gives you the lead in the second half. Tobias Merriweather makes his first catch and a touchdown at that. Just tell me what goes on that gets him open and ultimately leads to the touchdown.
Yeah, we had seen in the high red area, right when you cross the 50, that they've been a quarter zero coverage type defense. So we were in the huddle after the third quarter just talking about if they give us this coverage, we're going to try to go over top on Tobias. And he does a great job of pressing the defensive back with speed and running a corner, faking almost a corner route there and then slicing right across his face. And Drew just put the ball in a position where Tobias can go get it. So it was great to see him make that play.
So, Coach, this is midway through the fourth quarter. I thought this was a really important fourth down at the time. You're able to pick up the first down to extend the drive. Logan Diggs just puts his head down and gets it done, but tell me how it happens.
Well, as you see, earlier in the game, we had another 4th and 2 situation where they had shown to stack the box, so we wanted to go on the edge. They did a good job of defending it. So this 4th and 2, we said, no, we're going to run the ball no matter if they stack the box or not. And they actually have a defender there for Logan, but he puts his head down and just says there's going to be a refusal to not get this first down. And so he does a great job of just, beating a guy that's there to try to make the play. And he wins that one-on-one battle, and that's the course of short yards for the course of the game. Sometimes you got to win your one-on-one battles, and he does.
When we come back, we'll have more on this week's edition of the Marcus Freeman Show, presented by TireRack.com. Welcome back to the Marcus Freeman Show, presented by the experts at TireRack.com. It's now time for this week's Look Ahead, where we highlight Notre Dame's upcoming opponent. It's time for this week's Look Ahead segment when we're joined by Bill Reese. Bill joining us once again. Appreciate the time. Obviously, a disappointing loss this weekend at Notre Dame Stadium. Before we get into some of the, bright spots with a few players on the team, Bill, just anytime you get a result like this, what's the mood like around the facility, and how are guys trying to turn the page and move towards UNLV?
Well, I think that's really a key thing is turning the page. We were in yesterday, watched the film, got out, practiced, and just tried to work on some things that we needed to brush up on, and it's all eyes ahead, and let's get ready for UNLV and, learn from the past games as we have, done before, and, we'll move on to UNLV.
Sometimes fans don't want to hear about it, but there were still some good performances in the loss on Saturday. I want to start with the defense because I think that they gave up a touchdown on the first drive, but after that, no touchdowns the rest of the way. I thought did a really admirable job keeping that game within striking distance throughout the second half. One guy that comes to mind, and he's really become, I think, a really consistent force and leader on the defense is J.D. Bertrand. This is a good matchup for him, the way that Stanford was running the ball with a lot of frequency in this game. But what did you see from J.D. and what stuck out from him?
JD's very consistent in everything that he does. Mentally, he is really sharp. He gets everybody lined up, but he just has a really good instincts on, taking on blocks, taking good angles to the ball. Really a valuable, player for us, can do a lot of different things. And he always shows up in the stat line. He is very productive for us against the run and pass.
There was also a big fourth down play towards the end of the game where the defense got off the field and got the offense the ball back. Really timely play. One of the guys in on the stop was Nana Osapa-Mensah. When I was just listening to the radio call of Paul and Ryan, I heard his name called a ton this game. He seemed to have one of his better games at Notre Dame. He's a guy that's been around for a while, but really seems to kind of be stepping it up at this point in the year. What impressed you about Nana?
Well, Coach Al Washington has really been singing his praises here for the last 2, 3, 4 weeks, and just really has been impressed with how he's practiced. And then when he has gotten his opportunities in the games, he's really done well. And he had his most snaps this past week against Stanford. Again, he's a guy that can play inside, outside, very valuable, very smart, uses his hands really well, and is just a big factor in making plays. And, Coach Washington has been really excited about him, and it's really starting to pay off.
On the offensive side of the ball, it just didn't seem like they ran as many snaps as they would have probably liked to in this game. The running game didn't put up as big a numbers as we've seen in the past, but one guy I thought picked up that huge fourth down that extended a drive later was Logan Diggs, who I think really after the third game of the year, it's been a factor in the passing game. Then he had that big running performance last week where he got close to 100 yards. I think that run he had on fourth down, he kind of put his head down in a way he may not have before. What's the team seeing from Logan that's really allowing him to develop here in this year?
Well, Logan's very talented, and he had a shoulder injury back in the spring, so he had to rehab it, and really was in a red jersey for the majority of August, and finally got the green light to go ahead, and he was ready for Ohio State. And he's just gotten better and better as the season has gone on. He's gotten himself into really good shape. He's just getting more reps. He is very talented, both as a runner and receiver. Pass blocking has really improved. He really comes to play. He's an exciting guy to watch.
On the outside, a name that a lot of fans have been, I guess, craving to see get on the field is Tobias Merriweather. He got on the field. We saw him targeted with a play towards the end of the third quarter. Just couldn't quite connect on that one. Then first play of the fourth quarter, I thought and we talked to Coach Freeman about it in the show, actually. We're going to see it diagrammed in the show. Great play call, great design, great protection, gets him open for the touchdown. I guess just how excited is the staff about Tobias, and what impressed in those really two plays where he got open and ultimately made the catch on the second one?
Tobias has a wealth of talent. He's really learning how to be a college receiver. He didn't have spring practice. He got here in June. So as he's begun to understand the offense, understand the coverages that he's seeing week in and week out, he's going to get more and more opportunities. And we're really excited from, what he showed on Saturday night to how he's practiced. He's got a bright future at Notre Dame. It's just he's been building, and he made obviously a really huge play Saturday night.
All right, let's shift our focus to UNLV. This is an opponent that comes in with not, let's say, a lauded football history, but I think at this point in the year, Bill, it's pretty clear Notre Dame's not going to look past anybody, especially at home with the two surprising losses. They were 4-1 at one point this year. They've dropped their last two. I know it's Marcus Arroyo's third season, though, and he's really kind of building this program up. And it feels like this is the first year he's had a chance to really put his imprint on this team, has them going in the right direction. Just big picture, UNLV, what stands out from them, and as a program, what do they represent coming into Notre Dame?
Well, Marcus Arroyo is a really good football coach. He's been on the West Coast most of his career, but has a great reputation out there. And this year they made a big effort. They went out and took a number of transfers that, have helped them on both sides of the ball. So coupled with, really an older, more veteran team, they've got obviously a very good young quarterback. And coincidentally, when they were 4-1, he had been playing. The last 2 weeks when he was hurt and he hasn't played, they've lost those 2 games against 2 real good teams. But at the same time, I think when they're healthy and have, all of their weapons, they're obviously a much better team.
You mentioned the quarterback, Doug Brumfield. One of the big questions coming into this week is whether or not he's going to play. Coach Freeman said he thinks he's going to play. We'll see how the week plays out with him being day-to-day, at least that I checked. But when you see him on film, what does he do that makes him a dynamic quarterback, and what kind of challenges does Brumfield present when at full strength, full health for this Notre Dame defense?
Well, first of all, he's left-handed, so you don't see left-handed quarterbacks all that often. But he has great size. He's 6'4", 225, 230 pounds. He can move, run around. He's got a very strong arm. He can reach all levels of the field. And what's a little bit surprising is as good a thrower that he is and as strong as arm as he has, he really has nice touch, nice location on his intermediate throws. Does a nice job of going through his progressions, finding the checkdowns. He'll take off, if he feels like the pocket has collapsed and he can get out and make some yards with his feet. He's hitting close to 70% of his passes. So, this is a very complete quarterback, and I'm sure they're hoping he's going to be healthy and ready to go.
On the defensive side of the ball, Bill, we're at the point in the year where I'm looking through some of the stats, and one thing that jumped out to me, their leading tackler, Austin Jake, has 80 tackles. Nobody else has more than 35. This team's also intercepted the ball 11 times in 7 games this year, and albeit against opponents maybe at a lower level than Notre Dame is at. But still, those numbers take your breath away a little bit when you look at them. Just defensively, what do they do well that leads to some of those numbers that we're seeing, and what kind of scheme does Notre Dame maybe expect to see them come into South Bend with?
Well, they really have a good front. They've got, again, a number of transfers up front, one from TCU, one from Utah, and Ajake, as you mentioned, 80 tackles. I had to look at that twice to make sure I was reading it correctly. If he had 80 tackles for the entire season, that would be really a very productive year. But he's all over the place. He's very quick. He's very instinctive. Reminds you a little bit of Bertrand. And in terms of how he plays and how he gets guys lined up. But they are able, with their front, to get good pressure on the quarterback. They can rush the passer very well. And so what happens is quarterbacks are under duress and they're putting the ball up for grabs. And they've been very opportunistic in the back end. Like you said, 11 interceptions, which again is a very significant number. They've got 2 good cornerbacks in Williams and Oliver, who have done, a great job for them in terms of just locking down the outside receivers. So, by no means is this game, anything that we're going to, take for granted. Defensively, very rugged, skilled. They're a good football team.
You kind of led me towards the last question I have before we wrap up here, and it's about just when you have a team like UNLV coming in, and I think Notre Dame at this point in the year, we talked about it a little bit at the top, they know they're going to get team's best shot, but this is the prime example, right? UNLV doesn't come to South Bend all that often. You've been around the game for a long time. Just in general, with whether it's staff or players, just a whole football unit, how do you have the right mindset going into a week like this so you don't allow yourself to maybe take a team for granted and approach it like you should every single week with them coming in knowing that they have nothing to lose?
Well, as a staff, you don't know that much about their players because you didn't recruit a lot of them. You haven't seen a lot of their crossover film like you would with a Midwestern team or an opponent that we would play on a regular basis. So you're really looking at them, really for the first time and assessing their personnel, assessing their scheme. We've been able to connect some of the dots and see who they remind us of in terms of their scheme. But they do have good players. And, our players will see that when they turn on the film. They'll see, big physical guys that can rush the passer. They've got a real good group of wide receivers, a big physical running back, a big strong arm quarterback. They'll look and say, hey, these guys are legitimate, and they'll know right off the bat that, hey, this is going to be, again, a worthy opponent, a team that can come in here and play. They played Cal very close. They had the ball at the end of the game with a chance to win it and didn't. So, they've been able to go against a Pac-12 team and do very well. So, we understand, and they'll be able to see for themselves when they watch the film that this is a good team.
Well, Bill, as always, we appreciate the time and you previewing the upcoming opponent. Thanks again, and we'll talk to you next week.
All right, Tony. Thank you.
We now present the highlights from a recent Coach Freeman press conference.
Given that UNLV says its starting quarterback Brumfield is day-to-day, and I realize we all are, how does that complicate getting ready for this game?
Yeah, I mean, it starts off with one. One's a right-hander, one's a left-hander, and so the different things you do to try to contain a left-handed quarterback versus a right-handed quarterback schematically can change some things defensively. I think they're both talented quarterbacks. So to sit here and say that, you're going to change everything, it's not. They're talented quarterbacks with some similar skill sets. But I think the biggest thing for us is to make sure we understand we have to have a plan for a right-handed and a left-handed quarterback.
Next question today will be from Matt Locke.
Hey, Coach. Scouting UNLV as a whole, regardless of who's playing quarterback, what do they do well, and what have you been really keying in on in a film session?
Offensively, I don't know if Aiden Robinson will play, but he's a guy that I remember when I was at Cincinnati, we recruited him to be a linebacker at Cincinnati, ended up going to Louisville and transfer. I think he is a powerful running back. The quarterbacks, both quarterbacks, I think, do a good job of taking care of the ball, making good decisions, extending plays. Ricky White's a guy that I know from my time at Cincinnati, and we recruited him when I was there. And so they have talent all over the place. Defensively, I can't number 18. Their D tackle is a very disruptive football player. Will be one of the best D linemen we see all year, and they do a good job of bringing some edge pressure. And listen, it's a talented football team that started off the season 4-1 that we know is going to present a challenge to this team, and that's what I tell our players that we have to respect our opponent, and you don't have to watch too much of their film to gain a respect for the job that Coach Aurora has done with that program and what they're going to bring here in South Bend.
Next question will be from Sean Steyer.
Hey, Marcus, obviously everyone would say they want to start fast offensively. When you look at the 6 points that you guys have in the first quarter, how do you kind of prioritize that and kind of work to that end?
Yeah, we gotta make sure that we are, one, it's a mentality. And you're not judged. That's what I just told the team and the staff. We're not judged off of mentality, but you got to have a right mindset, because that will have a dictate on your actions and how we start the game. And so we got to come out the locker room ready to go with the right mentality. And then, we got to give our offense some confidence plays, some easy drive starters, some plays where there isn't multiple decisions, right? There's going to be one thing we want you to do, and we have to try to look for easy completion, be able to run the ball, establish the run play, and really have no self-inflicted wounds. And you see how we started last game with a penalty to start the game, and then the second down we had some miscommunication. We can't start the game that way. We got to start the game effectively. We got to practice those plays often and make sure our guys know exactly what we plan to see and what we're going to do as an offense. And defensively, I think it's a mindset of we got to challenge them. I think what you look at last game is that defensively, we wanted to fill them out a little bit, feel Stanford out what they were going to do. And, we can't be soft. We got to challenge our opponents. And so both sides of the ball have to come out with no mental errors and really focus on challenging the opponent on both sides of the ball.
Next question will be from Eric Hansen.
Hey, Coach, when we were talking to Tommy Reese the other night, he mentioned that you had a vacancy for offensive analyst and even invited us to apply, which would have been disastrous. But I'm curious, what logistically might have been or might be the reasons that you don't have one, why there is a vacancy halfway through your season? And is it something you're still looking to fill yet this season?
Yeah. I don't think it's a vacancy as much as we're always looking for ways to enhance our program, and bringing on an offensive analyst was something, additional offensive analyst was something we were looking at prior to the start of the season. But it had to be the right fit. It had to be the right person. And just a couple avenues we looked at and just talked to wasn't going to be what's right for us and what's right for those guys that maybe we had talked to and just kind of felt out. And so it's not a vacancy where we're looking to fill it. We're always looking for ways to enhance. And guess what? If that's 1, 2, or 3 analysts on either side of the ball, special teams, if it's going to enhance our program, we'll definitely continue to look into it. But we're not just looking for a number. We're not looking for just anybody to fill a spot to help us continue to enhance. It has to be somebody that truly fits this staff and really the direction we're going. Eric, I don't know if that's you. I'm sorry.
Next question will be from Patrick Engel.
Hey, Marcus, just wondering if you can update the injuries on Jason Anilola, Jaden Mickey, and Eli Redden.
And who? Eli? Okay. Jason is right now it's day to day. He'll be questionable. He's tried to practice a little bit, hasn't practiced the entirety of a practice yet, like he would normally do on game week, but he's doing more and more every day. And it will really be how much he continues to heal over these next 48 hours. And it's not a bone, or it's not a strain. It's more just the healing of a muscle, in his rib. And so the ability for him to continue to take deep breaths, that's my biggest concern is going to be his wind. It's not getting hit as much as his capacity to breathe in his lungs. And, anytime you have a rib injury, that affects the way you breathe. Jaden Mickey is still questionable. Practiced a little bit yesterday, but did not practice the entire length of a practice as you would like to see. We're just trying to be cautious in terms of the volume we have him do. So he's still questionable for the game. Eli Rarinan, unfortunately, will be out for the remainder of the season. He suffered a non-contact knee injury, retore his ACL that he had torn last year in December. And so, he'll have surgery here in the next couple of days, and we'll continue to keep Dr. Radigan busy. Obviously Dr. Radigan had 2 surgeries this week with Kevin Bauman and Bo Bauer, and here in the next week or so, he'll do Eli Rarigan.
Reminder to use the raise hand function for your questions. Our next question will be from Pete Sampson.
Marcus, you talk about sort of having, I guess, fewer options on plays where guys know 100% what to do all the time. With the way modern offenses run, with converting routes and quarterback and receivers being on the same page, like how much of a challenge is that? Is it realistic to sort of have as many 100%ers on offense as maybe you would like?
Yeah, I would probably let me clarify. When I say 100%ers, a part of offense and defense is your alignment. Well, there was a penalty last week where we were misaligned. Well, that's 100%. There's no other option but to be aligned off the ball on that certain call. And so that's kind of some of the part of when I say 100%ers, as I did on Monday, that I'm talking about. The other part is, listen, you can't put your offense at a disadvantage because of how much you want to simplify. We're going to simplify in terms of maybe not as many options for the quarterback. Hey, you got 2 reads here. We want to hand the ball off here. We're not going to use it as RPO, but what we're not going to do is put our offense at a disadvantage. And that's what I want to make sure that we don't do. What I've challenged our coaching staff and what I've seen them really do this week is work to eliminate or minimize any of those mental errors that we've had. And they've been doing a lot of different things in terms of, one was to, as I said, consolidate the game plan, right? So that our players don't have to know as much. But 2 is I see him in practice, and Coach Reese is really doing a good job of changing the way we do a little bit of our team periods in practice. And he's almost calling it like a game, and that our players don't have a script to say, okay, here's the script, let's memorize it. He's doing a good job of saying, okay, they have to look to the sidelines, get the signal. They don't know exactly what the call is going to be. See, sometimes you script practice where as I'm going into the game, I know these are the 3 plays I got, and what we're doing is challenge them a little bit to get the calls from the sideline, not know exactly what they're going to do and be able to react. And they're doing a good job of watching. I saw them the other day. They're watching parts of practice as a group. They're watching 7-on-7 periods to make sure there's one voice, everybody's on the same page, and you're being held accountable to your teammates, and if you make a mental mistake, well, you know what? You're going to have some older guys that aren't making mental mistakes want to know why. Like, you're held accountable not only to your coaches, but to your teammates. And so it's been good to see the enhancement, I think, as an offensive staff and in terms of not just saying, hey, continue to trust the process. We'll be better. We're going to be better. We're going to execute better. But let's find ways to enhance our process. Let's find ways to fix it. And I know I saw Coach Reese on the field the other day early in practice. Instead of in the meeting room, he's going through the script tape or through the practice script with the quarterbacks and kind of walking through it and going through, hey, this guy wasn't open. I saw him. This guy's not open. What would you do here? Go to the check down. And just those are all different ways to enhance the execution part of what we want to see. And it's not just going to be say, okay, run these 3 plays. You're not giving your offense a chance to have success by running very limited plays and giving them limited options. But options are going to be executed at a hopefully a higher rate because of the way we're preparing.
We'll go back to Pete Sampson with a follow-up.
Another thing that Tommy mentioned was sort of the corrections period that you guys do. I was interested, like, when that happens, how long it goes, what makes you feel like, okay, this was a good corrections period versus maybe this corrections period wasn't as good. That sort of process of practice. You talk about that.
Yeah, I'm giving the coordinators maybe a little bit more freedom to say, let's not just run plays. And there might be a period where let's stop the plays or just say, hey, leave 5 minutes to go over the plays that maybe we have mistakes in and really focus on making sure there is very clear coaching in terms of what is wanted instead of waiting sometimes till you get into the meeting room to watch it on film or to coach it the next day. I want to make sure that we're giving them instant feedback and scripting that. You can't just stop every play, but scripting in periods where, hey, we don't have play scripted. This will be for corrections that we see during practice. I think is an important part of that.
We'll go to Mike Berardino.
Hey, Marcus, with the Eli setback, we always ask about the 2 freshman tight ends together. So what do you need to see or hope to see from Holden? Where is he with his blocking in particular as you go forward? Yeah,
Holden's going to, I would say, have an increased role. It's great to have Mitch back at a time like this. When you lose Eli Raridan, Eli was really, really learning and playing, really practicing at a high level and playing at a high level and improving. Holden's doing the same thing, and Holden is continuing to get better. But I think what you're going to see is now, with those 3 tight ends, with Mayer, Mitch Evans, and Holden being your top 3 guys now, Holden's, what his game plan and what he's going to be asked to do will increase. And he's up for the challenge. He's an extremely intelligent kid. He's improving daily. And I look forward to seeing what he does with this increased role.
We'll go back to Sean Stiers for a question.
Marcus, just curious how Drew Pine has handled this week, after he had been on such an upward trajectory, and then just the team as well, how they've handled the week.
Yeah, I think, early in the week, it's a confidence blow. Drew was, I met with Drew one-on-one for a while, and I could tell early in the meeting, he felt like he let the team down, and that's what makes Drew Pine. That's we need more individuals that look at themselves and say, hey, I didn't do my job. And that's from the head coach on down to the starting quarterback, on down to the scout team guys. And so, Drew continues to be reassured of the confidence we have in him, the confidence that that his team has in him. And I believe he's a extremely talented quarterback that was playing really, really well, and didn't have the game that he wanted to. But what we can't do is let that have any impact on his mentality or his mindset going into this game versus UNLV. And so Drew's had an extremely good week of practice. The biggest focus with Drew is be confident. You're never going to be perfect. Move on to the next play. And Drew has he's tough on himself. He's his toughest critic. And sometimes when you're tough on yourself, it's hard to move on to the next play. And my biggest thing with Drew has been move on. Do not let one play turn into two. One play, one life. Move on to the next play. And he's done a good job at that this week. And, hopefully he continues to do it on Saturday. As far as the team, again, we took a blow as an entire program Saturday and Sunday. And what we had to do is as the leader, you got to get up there and say, it's okay. We got to turn this negative situation into a positive thing. And this has to somehow, some way help our program move forward. And part of it is me getting in front of the room and saying, this had to happen, right? This had to happen for us to get better. The only way we're going to get better is to learn from it. The only way we're going to get better is to fix the issues that you see happen. And that whole adage of just trust the process and it's going to get better, like, that's not the way we're going to do things. We're going to evaluate and fix the process. We're going to fix things. And you know what? I believe it was a great week, a great 2 days of practice. And, today is hopefully going to be another good day of practice. And let's build on the corrections and the good things we've done in the past. And in hopes that Saturday we go out and we execute and we do a better job. We play better. But this really has made this group rally together, like stay together, trust each other. Do not listen to anything anybody has to say positively or negatively about you outside of these walls. Coach, be honest with yourself, coach each other up, coaches coach the players, coaches help each other. And let's use this as a time to really evaluate what we're doing and make sure, we have to make sure, not hope and pray and not keep our fingers crossed, but make sure that we're better and we perform better on Saturday when it matters the most.
We'll go back to Matt Locke for a question.
Hey, Coach, your players get a chance to wear the cleats for a cause this weekend. Just how special is it for you and for your program to be able to make such a big difference in this community?
Well, it's a great, really a great opportunity for our program to raise awareness for these special causes that are local and that mean a lot to our program and to South Bend, Indiana. And so I think part of it was selling it. It's cool. You get these cool cleats. Our players are always looking for new drip but they get to wear, really cool cleats, but have a good meaning behind a great meaning behind it. And I think Jack Kaiser did a great job of just bringing this whole thing into fruition. And I think our players are excited about it.
Welcome back to the Marcus Freeman Show, presented by TireRack.com. It's now time to wrap up this week's show. Coach, halfway through the season, you're 3-3. I imagine the next 6 games will reveal a lot about this team's character. What are you hoping that it will reveal?
Well, I want us to play to our ability. If we do that, we can play with any team that we have on the remainder of our schedule. That's the challenge, is that every week you have to bring your A game and you have to perform to the standard that you have. And so that will be our challenge. But, our focus right now is UNLV and making sure that we have a great week of preparation and ultimately we get another chance and go out there and go play against a great UNLV team. What's going to be the biggest key then as you get set for this team? I'm sure this team wants to perform really well at home. You have a chance here with UNLV coming in. What's the focus going to be over the course of the next 5 days? They've had some injuries. Their quarterback that started them off going 4-1 has been out the past 2 weeks, but I think he'll be back this week. And so the ability defensively to limit what they do offensively and prevent the explosive gains. In our offense, we got to get in rhythm. We got to go back to being the offense that we know we can be and have that confidence. And as coaches, put these guys in positions to execute and to build on the momentum that I know we can have. Coaches, always appreciate the time. We'll talk to you next week. Thanks, guys. That'll do it for this week's edition of the Marcus Freeman Show, presented by TireRack.com.